making a mean joke at somebody, then that's like the core to
No,
the
but we're not
president
the
of the
people who
United
get
States'
outraged over
entire
jokes.
ethos.
It's you guys who get outraged
like the president
over
of the United
jokes.
States
That's the difference.
made it. Excuse me, Dave?
Tim, the difference is that we are not the people who get outraged over every joke and every word and every sort of innuendo. It's you guys
I'm
who
glad.
do.
Well, so good.
So I'm not outraged at the joke. I'm outraged at the fact that a human rights campaign fundraiser.
Dave Rubin recently appeared on Piers Morgan Uncensored, where he engaged in a debate with political commentator Tim Miller, seen on the right side of the screen. Throughout the discussion, Rubin strongly challenged Miller's arguments, leaving him struggling to respond effectively. Miller, who is often perceived as overly emotional in debates, appeared visibly unsettled once again during this exchange. Rubin's sharp rebuttals and firm stance clearly put Miller on the defensive, leading to a tense and revealing discussion. Let's take a look at the clip.
But who, of course, is wheelchair bound. Let's take a listen.
Y'all know we got Governor Hot Wheels down there. Come on now. And the only thing hot about him is that he is a hot ass mess, honey.
Tim, not only did she make a crass, repulsive jibe about the fact that Greg Abbott is a disabled man in a wheelchair, and that is clearly indisputable in my eyes, she then did this. She issued a statement saying, I wasn't thinking about the governor's condition. I was thinking about the planes, trains and automobiles he used to transfer migrants into communities led by black mayors, deliberately stoking tension and fear among the most vulnerable. Literally, the next line I said was he was a hot A mess, referencing his terrible policies. At no point did I mention or allude to his condition, so I'm even more appalled that the very people who unequivocally support Trump, a man known for racially insensitive nicknames and mocking those with disabilities, are now outraged. Now, Tim, you're an intelligent human being. You're a fair-minded human being.
Am I?
She's talking utter bullshit, isn't she?
The statement was not necessary or great and obviously untrue. I think she should have just wrote it out with the joke. Everybody can make a judgment about whether they appreciate a joke at Greg Abbott's expense. I find it hard to imagine that my co-panelists from MAGA world are going to start clutching their pearls over somebody making a mean joke at somebody, then that's like the core to the president of the United States' entire ethos.
It's you guys who get outraged
over
jokes. That's the difference.
Made it. Excuse me, Dave?
Tim, the difference is that we are not the people who get outraged over every joke and every word and every sort of innuendo. It's you guys
I'm
who
glad.
do.
Well, so good.
So I'm not outraged at the joke. I'm outraged at the fact that a human rights campaign fundraiser where it's about all the marginalized people and the perceived oppression of the trans people and everything else, that there she's making a joke about disabled people and they're laughing about it. I'm not outraged at the joke. I make far worse jokes than that on my show every single day.
I mean, let me bring in...
I'm not particularly outraged by the joke, but it is undeniably inappropriate. Some things just cross a line. As much as I've criticized Joe Biden, often referring to him as an empty vessel of a leader, I've always maintained a level of respect, recognizing that many of the decisions attributed to him are likely not his own. It's clear he struggles with the demands of leadership, and honestly, he probably wouldn't be able to manage something as simple as running a cash register, let alone making critical decisions as President of the United States. That said, whenever I've pointed out these issues, like the clear signs of cognitive decline, I've always emphasized that it's a sad reality. I don't take joy in mocking someone for aging because ultimately we all face the same fate if we're fortunate enough to live that long. Making fun of someone for being elderly or disabled is just in poor taste. Now, I'm not losing sleep over this, nor am I outraged to the point of frustration. I'm not sitting up at night thinking, how dare that comedian make a joke about Greg Abbott? But I do find it wrong to make jokes at the expense of those who are elderly or disabled. It's simply unnecessary. What's especially ironic is that someone like Tim Miller would defend this kind of humor. His side is often the first to express outrage over offensive remarks. Yet here, they seem to make exceptions when it suits them.
It's kind of thin there. So we're going to pretend to be outraged about her joke when the President of the United States core brand is making these sort of jokes. So I would, if I was her, I wouldn't have put out the statement afterwards. If it's me, you know, I don't know. I think that Dave's kind of...
Donald Trump does not mock people for having disabilities. While he might make remarks about someone's appearance or even call them unattractive, he wouldn't say something like, ha ha ha, you're in a wheelchair. That would be classless and completely inappropriate.
This model over there, I don't take money from any Russian assets. Like that's just me. So I'm able to just kind of say
Yeah,
what
you
I
just
really
take money
think
from
on here with
MSNBC,
Dave. You never
champ. Good
know.
for you.
So I understand why he might not, he might want to pick his spots.
All right. Well, let me
That's
bring
some
in.
great work you're doing at Bulwark, a real solid place of journalism over there.
But we
Keep it
haven't
up.
taken any money from the Russians at the Bulwark, Piers. I don't know if you know this, but Dave took
Clown,
$400,000 per month from the Russian from a Russian information operation. And so you understand why.
And what was the name of the show that I did for the Russians? Tell me
right
that.
now is just handing
Tell me
things
that.
over to the Russians. That he has to pretend to be outraged about things. You don't know who's paying
Yeah,
the
what
bill.
was the name of the show I did for the Russians, champ?
It was Tenet Media that paid you. Tenet Media
What was the
that paid
name
you.
of
Is
the
that
show?
right?
What was the name of the show?
$400,000 per month and a
What was the name
$100,000
of the
signing
show?
bonus. That not you?
Yeah, you just literally don't know what you're talking about, which
And
is
that was
standard.
not
You work
you?
for
Okay.
MSNBC in the Bulwark. It's impressive.
All right.
Okay, so that
let's
wasn't
try.
you then. You weren't.
It's interesting how certain people always appear on Piers Morgan Uncensored with the intention of ambushing figures like Dave Rubin and others associated with Tenet Media. Now, I'm not going to say too much. I don't claim to know everything. But I do have some inside knowledge. For those who may not be aware, I work as a YouTube strategist for several major political channels, which means I have a lot of industry connections. I was aware of the Tenet Media situation before it became public, and I know many of the people involved. The way it's being portrayed is completely inaccurate. I won't go into further details because I don't want to cause any issues, but the controversy surrounding this is largely overblown. I understand why people are using it as political ammunition, but let's be clear, since when is it illegal to receive payment from a Russian entity? If someone is actively spreading Russian propaganda in exchange for payment, that's a different conversation. However, if a content creator is simply producing a show and happens to have sponsors who are Russian, that's not illegal, nor is it inherently unethical. Being part of a media network or having sponsors from a particular country does not automatically make one a propagandist. Personally, I don't see an issue with it. Some might object on moral grounds, but if their concern is solely based on the fact that the funding comes from a Russian source, that seems like an unfair bias. At the end of the day, this entire narrative is just being used as a weapon. If Dave Rubin had been given the opportunity to press his opponent directly, asking what exactly was I paid to say that constitutes Russian propaganda, they likely wouldn't have had an answer. But of course, Piers wasn't going to allow that moment to happen.
Commentator one in that indictment there, Dave? That wasn't you?
Yeah, I was commentator one. It was nice to read
okay.
something honest about me that I did all my due diligence trying to figure out what was going on over there. What was the name of the show? Tell me about the propaganda I put out there.
Well, it was
what was
the
the name
Tenet
of the
Media
show?
that was paying you. Tenet Media was a Russian.
What
It was
was the
RT,
name of the
it was
show?
an RT cutout.
Yeah,
It was a Russian
literally
cutout.
don't know what
RT,
you're talking
an
about.
RT
You don't
cutout.
know
They were
what
paying
you're
you. I've
talking
never
about,
been
Jeff.
paid by a Russian cutout, so I don't exactly know how it all works.
You're paid
But,
by MSNBC, which is state-owned propaganda. You're paid by the Bulwark, which is which should be just called
that's
bullshit.
state-owned
That would be a
propaganda.
better
You
name
know
of the
that's
network.
not state-owned
Whatever the hell
propaganda.
it is you people are doing
Could
over
I
there.
jump in on
What
the
was the name
topic?
of the show that I did? What was the name? You don't know.
I've
You
told you
don't know
several
because
times,
you
bro.
don't know what you're saying.
All
Very
right.
impressive.
Let
told
me
you several
wrestle.
times,
Let me
you
wrestle
paid
things back. Time out. Let's wrestle things back to the
I'd
actual.
rather talk about Jasmine Crockett's eyelashes.
Let's
but,
talk about Jasmine Crockett. I want to bring in Jake here. I mean, Jake, presumably you would condemn both the joke and the statement that was obviously a pack of lies.
Yeah, Piers, I agree with Tim that the outrage Olympics is a little tiresome and rings hollow. I also am an elected official, and I know that what is communicated is not what is said, it's what is heard. And what was heard from her statement did strike me as reflecting the governor's disability. And I don't think that's funny. And that's rule number 1A as a politician is if you're going to make fun of somebody, make fun of yourself. That's what's actually going to get laughs. So I don't think it was an acceptable statement. And I don't think it's acceptable when Trump mocks people with disabilities. I don't want to see Democratic politics.
Maybe I missed something, but when exactly did Trump mock someone with disabilities? If he did, I wouldn't support that. It's not acceptable. However, I can't recall a specific instance off the top of my head. What's interesting is how every time someone criticizes the left, even if they aren't a right-wing figure, they feel the need to simultaneously criticize Donald Trump. I don't know much about the person in the middle of this discussion, but I'd guess he isn't particularly right-leaning. Yet, this pattern is so common. Bill Maher does it all the time. It's as if people believe they can't call out the left without also taking a jab at Trump. But let's be honest, you can critique the left without bringing Trump into the conversation. That's entirely possible. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. Dave Rubin strongly pushed back against Tim Miller for defending those remarks about people with disabilities. And frankly, I don't see how that defense makes any sense. What are your thoughts on this whole Dave Rubin versus Tim Miller exchange on Piers Morgan Uncensored? Drop your opinions below.